Great to be here, and it's great to have an opportunity to talk to you today about the transition of wearable technology into artificial intelligence data collection engines. So it's actually fascinating to hear from Pfizer about the priorities and the challenges that they face when it comes to adoption of any type of technology at home that actually collects biometric data from the human body, that actually allows us to make a patient-centric view happen at the clinical side and at the research side. So let me ask a quick question here. How many people here decided to wear socks today? So we have about, 3 people there did not wear socks, I guess. 97% adoption, right? So the point here that I'm trying to make here is that it is our goal to actually inject sensing technology into whatever a consumer decides to wear in the morning. Changing behavior, we all know, is challenging, right? So our point of view is that we should not change behavior. We should just put the technology exactly where it belongs so that we can collect data from the human body, from whatever that person decides to wear in the morning. So this is a sock, as you can see. It feels like a sock. It's washable. It comes with textile pressure sensors at the plantar area of the foot and a 9-axis IMU at the ankle bone level. And yes, it has been validated against gold standards. So it has been validated against OptiTrack and Mobility Lab. And we come up on par with $350,000 gait lab systems. So now we can finally collect data like step time variability from a Parkinson's patient. We can collect data in terms of and infer med compliance and med efficacy from a multiple sclerosis patient because, of course, of the progression of the disease, and gait is one of the key indicators of that progression. This is just one of the examples of what we can do. We are former Microsoft, and what makes us different is what you see on this slide, is organic adoption. Of course, any wearable device, and I'm wearing a few, is probably limited to our wrist right now. And the wrist is a great position for collecting some of the data. But as I just gave you an example, it's not a great position for gait assessments or functional assessments, as an example. So how do we leverage smartphones and smartwatch technologies as hubs to collect data from the human body, from other sensing technology, and drive that data to the cloud? So think of us as a sensor to cloud crazy engineering company, right? We are truly an R&D engine. Our architecture is focused on delivering new digital biomarkers by collecting data from novel sensors, microelectronics, mobile computing, and artificial intelligence-driven cloud computing. We're all exclusively based on Azure for obvious reasons. That's what we know. But we also know that Azure is probably the most privacy-compliant cloud architecture out there. And so HIPAA and GDPRS, of course, matters a lot to us. We're honored to work with some of the top academic institutions in this country and outside this country. We work very closely with Baylor College of Medicine, UCLA, USC Keck School of Medicine, with which we have a R01 5-year-long grant on diabetes and diabetic foot complications that I will talk about. Just to summarize the architecture is super simple. We're totally sensor agnostic. I gave you an example of the textile pressure sensors in our socks. We created these sensors because we couldn't find sensors that a normal person would be willing to wear in the morning under the plantar area of the foot. Hard sensors that are actually physically part of your phone, as an example. I'm not sure whether you want to wear those under your foot every day, right? The cool thing is that MIT, Caltech, and other large academic institutions in this country are now actually working on this novel sensing technology. We now have visibility on temperature textile sensors, sweat composition sensors, and other sensors that will come to market. And our microelectronics are designed from the ground up to be non-mission specific. So that specific microelectronic component that you see on the sock has 7 open channels. We're only using 3 of them right now. We have 4 open channels. So temperature is an option. Sweat composition is an option. So your imagination is the limit. And actually, what is the patient-centric view? What is the data that you actually need from that patient to actually provide better care, better diagnostic decision-making, better therapeutic decision-making as well? Everything else is done in the cloud. And the exciting thing is that, in spite of the fact that the gap is widening between the availability of clinical resources and the aging population, imagine now driving this data into what we call a healthcare co-pilot. Think about a virtual physical therapist as an example in the cloud that can actually help a physical therapist engage with these patients and collect this data, but also engage on ranges of normality on cohorts of patients, right, without having a human intervention. And that's what we're working on. The SOC is just one of the examples that we're working on. By the way, it's available now. And it's being used in both clinical trials, but also for running. If you go to sensoriafitness.com, you will see that we're selling it right now to running enthusiasts. But this is actually another very interesting product that I wanted to share with you today. This is now the new gold standard to reduce diabetic foot complications. And it is very simple. It has been designed by a former Nike designer. For some of you, it may be familiar because it looks a little bit like a Nike Air Jordan in terms of color. I can guarantee you this is probably the most elegant and easy to wear product when it comes to diabetic foot ulceration. Most of the other products look like a total contact cast. So not exactly as easy to wear and elegant as this one. And it has been proven to reduce the risk of amputation on 150 patients on a randomized clinical trial. The other products that you see here are all available right now, with the exception of the smart baby onesie that we're still working on right now. This is actually a pre-risk of SIDS type of data collection device, temperature and respiration monitoring, but also baby position in the crib. We talked about the SOC. The SOC is now patented, and we're actually collecting data from multiple sclerosis patient at Shepherd. You see the mobile application here that we actually enable data collection with. The mobile application is called Sensoria Walk. It's available on the Google Play Store right now. The cool thing is that you can actually see that we collect novel data sets. Again, not just the number of steps. We can collect center of pressure data, balance data. Now imagine the predictive analytics capabilities on predicting falls and risk of fall assessments. This is all something that we can actually enable right now. But the cool thing is that the machine learning engine in the cloud can also prescribe assessments. Stand up and go, 6-minute walk are now engine driven. So if I'm a clinician, I can just push a button for that specific patient, and I can prescribe, if you will, that gait assessment to my patient 3 times a week without having that patient come into the clinic and having a nurse with a stopwatch looking at how that Parkinson's or MS patient is walking today versus yesterday. Just to make it fun, this is actually a real patient video. I apologize for the quality, but you can actually see how the SOCs work as a stabilometric platform. Of course, stabilometric platforms are $45,000, and not very many clinics in this country can afford them. And by the way, the patient is not going to take the stabilometric platform at home. So, has the patient taken his medicines this morning? We can actually see that with the step time variability data, but the shuffling. Think about Parkinsonian gait as an example. If there is a degradation of that, we see that immediately, and we can engage in real time. The architecture is the same for every single product that we build. We leverage behavioral science, so we try to make the mobile application as easy as possible to use for the patient, using smiley faces and frowny faces, as we can see, not data. So you're doing good, or there's some action that you need to take, like taking your medicines today. And then we use a traffic light approach, which is a FHIR HIPAA compliant engine based on Azure, as I mentioned, that color codes every single patient, red, yellow, blue, or green, depending on whether this patient is within the ranges of normality that a clinician or a researcher has selected and prescribed or programmed for each one of them. You can actually see the data here. When you click on every single patient, you actually have a calendar view. Why is the calendar view important? We learned from clinicians and researchers that the patient-clinician interaction right now is very, very limited because it's based on self-reported patient data. Let me give an example for a VA podiatrist. He told me the other day he had this patient that was challenging, was not healing from terms of the diabetic foot ulceration. After 9 weeks, it was still not healing. And he was asking the question, Jeff, did you wear your boot? And the answer was inevitably every week was yes. And then, of course, the dressing under his plantar area was black. So clearly, he was not wearing the boot. But the question to ask at that point is challenging for a doctor, right? I mean, how do you tell a patient you're lying? Or this patient suffers from a condition called peripheral neuropathy. He's not lying. He's not feeling his feet normally. His nerves are damaged. He doesn't have the gift of pain, as Dr. David Armstrong calls it. So the question that he's now able to ask, and you can actually see there, is what did you do on Wednesday at 2 p.m.? Because on Wednesday at 2 p.m., you always remove the boot. Immediately, the patient responded, I go and visit my family on Wednesday at 2 p.m. I need to catch a bus. I cannot catch the bus. I cannot get to the bus wearing the boot. The podiatrist prescribed the scooter, and the patient went into full compliance and healed in 3 weeks. This is the level of power that the data actually is driving. The patient-clinician interaction is what matters. And we're talking about personalized medicine. Without data, there's no personalized medicine. And it's not DNA or genetics. This is just simple adherence, adoption, and understanding of what the patient needs from us to actually improve outcomes. You can actually see this is another patient. He's a very interesting patient. He's very active during the night, sleeps during the day. He removed the boot at 9 a.m. for 240 steps. The patient was taking a shower, right? So that is the power of the data that we currently have. As I mentioned, the system, the SOC in this case, has been validated by University of Sherbrooke in Canada against gold standards, and USC has validated our smart boot system as well. The same Sensoria core architecture, the same microelectronics can be leveraged for pretty much anything and everything that you can think about. We can collect data from any part of the human body. You actually see here, we interface with smartwatches, not just smartphones. This is the real application for people with diabetic foot ulceration. We learned that Medicaid and Medicare patients very often don't have data plans, or they don't have the most recent version of smartphones. So relying on their smartphone and their Wi-Fi or data connection at home was just impossible. So we actually provide and provision via QR code a smart watch for them that can be reused for the next patient. So within 12 weeks, the patient should be healed, and both the Sensoria core and the smartwatch can be leveraged and reused for the next patient. Dr. David Armstrong is the PI, the principal investigator on this R01 NIH and NSF grant, and we're honored to work with them. They published the first study last week at DEF CON in Los Angeles, and as you can see, the data is extremely encouraging, even if based on a very challenging patient population, which is very specific to Southern California, of course. As you can see, there's a pretty diverse ethnicity and diverse age and gender as well. But again, this product is now according to them, is the new gold standard. We're not limited to socks and boots. You can actually see that we can actually apply our sensors to other orthopedic scenarios, in this case, TKA or ACL reconstruction patient. And you can actually see that we built 19 different exercises to actually monitor rehabilitation of the knee. Again, from a clinical perspective, from the dashboard, you can just prescribe a subset of these exercises instead of actually providing a faded Xerox copy of those exercises that inevitably gets lost in the next 24 hours. You can now actually monitor range of motion of the knee, opioid use, and the KOOS score via a mobile application that, it's not very imaginative, but we call Smart Knee Brace. So again, our sensors can be applied to DoneJoy, Greg, to whatever type of knee brace you use. If you don't have one, we can provide you with one. Posture is next, and You can actually see here that we have a full SDK. We call it Sensoria Developer Kit because there is a lot of hardware, not just software in the kit. So we can provide straps, IMUs, posture braces, insoles. You tell us what you want to measure, and we'll do our best to help you do just that. With that, let me open it up to a couple of questions if you have any.
What's the timeline for validation for a new use case like this, like the knee or like the lung? How does that process work?
Great question. I mean, it was nothing short of a nightmare during the pandemic, of course, collecting and recruiting patients for clinical trials. We had to go to Australia for Parkinson's. So we did that with Neura. They published on Sensors Journal. Now it's a lot easier for sure. But it varies between 12 and 18 months.
And what about applications where there's not a gold standard? Like,
Great. Yeah, great. That is a fantastic question. There are quite a few of them. And, it's the sock is a great example where, quite frankly, there is no gold standard at home. There is really no gold standard. There is always something like a predicate device that we can probably look for. But if there isn't, I would argue that we can or you can become the de facto gold standard because, again, the quality of data is what matters to us. But we also use always the same analogy. We're trying to boil the ocean very often. We can do it one bucket at a time. I'm from Italy, and one bucket of water, you can make some good pasta with it, right? So yeah, it's just it's really a collaborative approach where we have the engineering support for you, and we look forward to working with people like you on the clinical knowledge and validation as well.
Hi, I'm Naomi. I'm a grad student at NYU. I was just curious. You mentioned like the onesies that you were making for like babies and helping in the prevention of like SIDS. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how's it helping the research?
Yeah, we're working with the University of Boise in Idaho. They have a lab. Of course, testing on newborn babies is challenging, something that we cannot do obviously by ourselves. So we're partnering with them on monitoring baby position in the crib, which is one of the key risk factors for SIDS. Very often, the baby should never sleep on his or her tummy, right? But very often, even the most knowledgeable parents go out for a movie one night, and there is a 13-year-old babysitter or an aging parent taking care of the baby, and the baby is positioned in the wrong position. The other data set that we're collecting is respiration rate. Our kids now are older, but I still remember us looking at the camera, looking at the baby, and trying to figure out if the baby was actually still breathing. Not great, right? So baby monitors are just not designed to monitor the respiration rate of the baby. We can easily do that with IMUs and textile sensors. Temperature is another really interesting data set that we can easily collect from a onesie, and most babies use onesies, right? So that's our hypothesis, if you will, is just that if we build it right and it's simple and convenient enough, people will use it.
So the challenge in the approval, was it the device or was it the data part collection?
It's device driven. And claims, it depends on the
claim about the device.
Yeah, correct. So as an example, this is a class one registered medical device, as any type of good in the country. Moving forward, we'll increase the claims, of course, as soon as the research and data supports that. But yes.